To the story now. A massive fuel increase is on the cards effective from Wednesday. Petrol will go up by at least R2.37 a litre, while the price of diesel will increase by R2.31 per litre. For some reaction, I'm joined by Bafana Magagula, Chief Strategic Manager at the South African National Taxi Council. Thank you so much for your time this evening, and I can only imagine that this is going to have a massive impact on the taxi industry. How would you describe these increases?
Thank you very much for bringing us on your program. This is, one of those worst times in our taxi industry. If you look at from 2020 to now with the corona, the hard lockdowns and so on, we've already been struggling before coronavirus, and now we are struggling more. We've had a very large number of repossessions of our vehicles by the banks. This is putting us in a more difficult situation, and really we do not know. The executive committee led by Mr. Tsebe, the president of Santaco, set about 2 weeks ago and could not come up with a solution in terms of increasing any price due to the fact that we're looking at also the commuters that we transport, and we're also looking at the competitions that we have, which are so unfair to us, competing against the buses that are being subsidized. It makes it so difficult for us to just increase and take this load over to our passengers. It's a very hard time. However, if it happens that we do increase, it will be definitely a situation far beyond our control. However, if that happens, once the executive committee has finalized all strategies that they are busy with now to avoid the increase, once it is unavoidable, it will be announced properly, and commuters will then be given enough notice to prepare for the increase that will be imposed on them based on these fuel increases.
So while the taxi industry itself cannot be expected to absorb these additional costs, it simply wouldn't be feasible. Do you think South African commuters have the necessary funds to pay for increased taxi fees, should that be the only solution?
Well, hence we are trying to delay any increase for now. If we thought so, we would have long increased. I think everyone who lives in South Africa can feel for us. Anyone who's got a heart can now feel for us. However, if there's nothing more we can do, we will definitely, because we also depend on the passengers as our consumers. They consume our transport. Unfortunately, government believes that South Africans must pay whatever they suffer from other countries. It is an unfortunate situation, and I think the government needs really to come to the table and look at what can they do, or what can we do together. And however, soon we believe that the Minister of Transport will come to the table and maybe come up with a plan. We're looking at a few options. One of them, speeding up the subsidy, and also looking at how can the taxi industry be exempted from these levies in order for us to try and avoid passing these increases to the commuters that we know do not have the money. Because why we know is because we live in the same communities. We are the same community actually.
So for a month we were given a reprieve in that R1.50 fuel tax relief. Now 75 cents of that R1.50 has been added back to the price. What do you think of that decision by government?
Look, those on and off. Today it's an increase of R1. Tomorrow it's 25 cents off. It's just something that is fooling us, because when the petrol increases by 20 Rand, when you take off that 75 cents, it still leaves it at another increase of about 3-4. And if you look at from last year around the same time as now, you look at the increase that we have suffered. Taking out 75 cents or 1 rand or even 3 rand, you're still not making any difference. Because what makes it more difficult is that when you increase the petrol, that is now the government, when they increase the petrol, it then affects all parts, tires. It also affects the interest rates, which after you've signed the contract, once that money is taken off, those things do not go down. So it is just a way of fooling us when you say you increase by 3 rand, then you take off 75 cents. That 2.25 rand, who's paying it is the very same consumer. So there is like zero a decrease when somebody says there's a levy taken off of 1 rand or whatever, 75 cents. The increase is just an increase, and it keeps on increasing. And everybody who lives in South Africa is a witness to that there's nothing that has been decreased. All prices have just gone up.
With so much pressure on taxi owners to try and remain profitable, is there not a worry amongst the leaders of the various taxi associations that pressure is going to result in taxi drivers trying to load more passengers, driving faster and more recklessly to try and get more trips in just to remain profitable? How is the taxi industry going to try and stop that from happening?
We are warning our drivers not to try and drive fast or maybe even use yellow lanes to think that they are making more money by that. Because when you drive fast, the first thing you do, you're wasting a lot of fuel. When you drive reckless, you are putting you as the driver, your life at stake, and of those passengers and other road users. So we discourage that and condemn it in the strongest possible term. It's not the way to solve or to try and make more money. There is no more money when you waste more money by driving fast, because you're still gonna use more liters. So there is just no saving on that, and we condemn it in the strongest possible term.
We've seen the clout that the taxi industry has in South Africa on previous occasions when the taxi industry has brought South Africa to a standstill to try and bring about change that they hope to see. Is there some way in which you are hoping to approach government to try and force them into bringing about some kind of relief or subsidies earlier for the taxi industry?
As I mentioned earlier on, Mr. Tsebe, the president of Santaco, is hard at work making sure that the NEC discuss with government in order to speed up especially the subsidy program, in order to reduce the stress that the taxi industry is carrying by subsidizing the passengers, so that there is no increase that is carried over to them.
Thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. That was Bafana Magagula, Chief Strategic Manager at Santaco, talking